Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. Find us out on the web. We've got football. We got baseball this week. Ravens headed off to Dallas. We're going to be doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour on Friday. All of it brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I'll have some Raven scratch-offs to go along with our Gold Rush Sevens doublers, which I'm running out of. We will be at Fadley's with Congressman John Sarbanes. James Piper Bond of the Living Classrooms Foundation is going to be joining us. I think my friend Gary Lynette's going to be joining us. Luke Jones will be joining us on Friday because the Orioles will be entertaining their final home regular season series this weekend against the Detroit Tigers. Luke was at the ballpark on Tuesday night. It's a quick series with the San Francisco Giants, and then the Tigers come to town. Luke will be out in Ravens all day. Then he'll be at the Orioles all night. I don't know what the hell we're doing on Thursday because they don't let me in, but they will both be performing this week, and neither one have performed very much lately, Luke. Honestly, you've seen some bad football and some really bad baseball of late. And, I was optimistic on Monday morning. Monday you and I got together and we talked about they're home now. They'll win a couple. They'll get straightened out a little bit. They might win a couple and they might get straightened out, but it's starting to feel, even for me, and I'm an optimist about it, I think they can still go and pitch and hit next month. But this is troublesome. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm surprised by what happened on Tuesday night when you've been making guys not named Blake Snell look like Blake Snell with your ineptitude at the plate. And I mean, go look at the September numbers. They are what they are. I mean, people were complaining they were struggling in July and August. I mean, look at September. That's really struggling. But Blake Snell's been fantastic in the second half. I mean, there was so much talk about him and, one-year deal and how it started out, but he's been outstanding over the second half of the season. So to sit here and say that I'm shocked that he struck out 12 and allowed one hit against an Orioles lineup that's at this point featuring 4 or 5 guys that frankly don't belong in a contender lineup in the month of September, I can't say I'm shocked, Nestor. Doesn't mean it's any less disappointing, but I mean, this team's in trouble. There's no way to mince words at this point in time. That doesn't mean they're not going to make the playoffs, but as I noted to you, as you were sending me a text late during Tuesday's game to kind of set up what time we were going to reconvene and chat about this, I said to you, if the regular season were another 5 to 7 games, I would really be having my concerns that they'd be missing the playoffs entirely. I mean, that's where this is trending right now. And to your point, it's baseball. Things could turn around. Mike Elias gave a bunch of injury updates on Tuesday as he kind of talked about the state of the team. Jordan Westbrook's still on track. In fact, I saw him with my own eyes take batting practice on Tuesday. Ramon Arias is taking batting practice. Ryan Mountcastle's down in Sarasota and is hitting, and a much more encouraging update on him than maybe we thought 10 days ago. But
it's nut cut time now. You're either going to be able to play in 2 weeks or you're not. It's less than 2 weeks now.
Well, and again, as I've said to you, being able to play physically, meaning you're cleared by the training staff and the medical staff to play is not the same thing of being ready to perform in October. So, but I'd certainly roll the dice with those guys coming back from injury compared to what we're seeing from half the lineup right now. I mean, in the month of September, Gunnar Henderson's hit, Cedric Mullins is hit, albeit he's become more of a platoon player and doesn't really hit left-handed pitching anymore. Anthony Santander has been fine. That hasn't been at his best, but he certainly has been good. Who else is hitting? I mean, Livan Soto is someone who has kind of supplanted Jackson Holliday as the starting second baseman for the time being. But
Holliday and Mayo have really been a tremendous disappointment for all of the air we've blown into the balloon about their greatness and that they will be great, but they're not great right now, not in the major leagues.
No, they're not. And
they're not even good.
They're
not even major league players. Really.
I mean, Jackson Holliday had a really good 2.5, 3 weeks when he first was recalled. Remember, hit some home runs, hit the grand slam in his first game back. I mean, that was great to see on the same day that Jordan Westberg got hit on the hand and went on the IL. But he's struggled immensely over the last month. I mean, dramatically, almost as bad as he was back in April. Kobe Mayo has never hit at the major league level to this point, albeit he's not playing every day, but at the same time, how are you inclined to run someone out there who's striking out half the time, right? So
Well, you're going to hit 40 home runs against Double-A pitching in Triple-A, and you get to the big leagues, and literally you're not even a 100 hitter. You can't find the ball.
I mean, it's a problem for right now. It doesn't mean that I'm down on Jackson Holiday and Kobe Mayo long term, but where it is right now, they're certainly not giving you any look. And I'll give you the name that I couldn't remember the other day for the Rangers, Evan Carter, who's out, has been out since I think May with a back injury, but he was the one who was called up late last year and gave the Rangers such a spark. Was one of their better hitters in the postseason as a rookie. Save for something dramatic happening here as far as a quick turnaround, they're not getting that from Jackson Holiday or Kobe Mayo. But let's not pick on the young guys. Adley Rutschman still not hitting, right? He hit a home run on Sunday, but we see him look like himself maybe for a game or two, and then it goes away again. Colton Cowser not doing a whole lot in the month of September, striking out a lot.
Really bad energy around the team from a leadership standpoint. Like, fans are pissed and fans are going to be pissed. And I see, I can tell by people's tweets where they are on the spectrum of what they know and they love baseball, or whether they're kayfabe, or whether they really are paying attention, like where they are. But the energy level we all see, we all have seen this thing not just look successful, but look prepared. I mean, dude, that fly ball in center field, they look Keystone. I mean, they're kicking the ball around now in a way, even defensively. And the weirdest part is we were all worried about the pitching. We were all worried about the starting pitching when Bradish went down and Means, when all those guys went down at Memorial Day, we were worried about the starting pitching. The starting pitching's been like the feature product since the All-Star break. It's been better than we thought it was going to be, and everything else, including the defense, has been far less than we thought it was going to be. All of it. The collective. Every player has underproduced. I'm looking up and down and I'm thinking, who is producing at any level that even looks like the back of their bubblegum card should look? None of them.
Well, Gunnar Henderson's, he is. He's hitting 327 in September. He's slugging 655. I mean, Gunnar Henderson is going to be the most valuable Oriole. Hasn't played like an MVP in the second half the way that he did in the first half, but he still played at a high level.
Suarez was getting votes to the fourth inning last night.
And the one thing I'll push back on, the starting rotation hasn't been that good since the All-Star break. It's been the last month or so that it's been much better, right?
It's been better than we thought it was going to be. We thought that was going to be the biggest problem, and that has not been the biggest problem.
Sure. Although, 2 weeks ago we were talking about how awful Corbin Burns was in August. So, you can spread around the blame.
But we didn't think the bats would just shut off. And then again, we didn't think 5 guys are going to get injured either.
And that's what I keep coming back to. I mean, at some point in time, you can't be surprised by this anymore. Look, Adley Rutschman, yes, that's alarming, right? I mean, we're talking about 2.5 months that he's hit like a replacement level player. I mean, that's how bad he's been for the second half of the season. So that, yeah. And I'm still not convinced we're not going to hear a week after the season ends that he was playing with some kind of injury. He said he's healthy. The coaches have said he's healthy. So you can only take them at their word for right now. But that still would not surprise me, because if not, it's like, how can you not fix Adley Rutschman? So, I mean, this is the kind of, Mike Elias talked about this on Tuesday. He addressed the media, gave injury updates. We'll get to Grayson Rodriguez here in a few moments. But one of the things that he talked about was, ultimately this all stops with me. I'm in charge of this. And I kind of look at this, and I'm not going to be reactionary here to the point where we're going to start talking about people getting fired left or right or anything like that. Although, will there be changes to the coaching staff? There are changes to the coaching staff just about every year, at least, right?
I can't even get down on this team when Rivera's in the. It's very obvious to anybody who knows baseball. They have different players. They're wearing the same uniform.
Right,
but it says Baltimore and Orioles, but they're different players, and they're not as good, and they're just not.
They're not, but also, guys, like I said, if Adley Rutschman truly is healthy and you're just not able to fix him, then I am asking questions about the coaching staff. In the same way I'm asking questions to Adley Rutschman, right? I mean, it can be both, right? I mean, that's one thing that's frustrating, I guess. And this was, I don't say this just as someone who's around the team and covers this and does this for a living. I thought this even when I was, quote, just a fan 20 years ago, right? We're always so quick to just want to blame one thing. It can be multiple things, right?
It always is multiple
right,
things.
Exactly. So I think we need to try to look at it through that lens. But I'll say this, Mike Elias, we talked about the bullpen back in spring training. We talked about the trade deadline. Okay, Eflin, great move, right? Even the IL stint aside, great move, fantastic move. They're going to be very glad to have him next year.
Well, the Burns
great.
move was the first move of the year, giving away a shortstop for him.
But I'm talking about the trade deadline. I'm
trade deadline. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm trying to give the totality of getting this team ready to win.
And we could talk about that. Sure. I mean, did they do enough? Was Burns enough, knowing that Kyle Bradish in January was dealing with what he was dealing with, and John Means had been shut down in October? But we'll have plenty of time.
You can play worst case scenario back when they got Burns and when worst case scenario was Bradish won't be available, but maybe Means will be. And, the worst case scenario is what we've seen, what we've witnessed, right?
Basically.
I don't know. I don't know how it could have fallen apart any more than it has over the last 60 days, except for Henderson getting hit in the head and Rutschman taking that foul tip and having a broken something on June 27th. And then it would all gone to hell and we'd understand it better. But I understand it really well. I watched a lot of baseball. This is not the same team that was on the field in June, and you shouldn't expect it to perform that way.
No, it's not. But the point I was trying to make was, okay, Zach Eflin, check, good move. Sir Anthony Dominguez, a couple more home runs allowed than you'd like, but overall, I mean, he's our closer right now. I mean, Craig Kimbrell, that was sad on Tuesday night, just sad.
That's the end, right?
It has to be. I mean, shame on them if when Danny Coulomb is activated at some point here in the next few days, and he's going to make at least one more rehab start or appearance. But if it's someone else to go and Craig Kimbrell is still on the roster, then, whether you want to just put him on the IL or what, I mean, shame on them then. I mean,
it has nothing to do with money or
right. It's not
vanity. He just can't get anybody out.
I think, and I even noted this on social media on Tuesday night, as he couldn't get out of the ninth inning and they had to go to Bowman, use someone who's actually been useful just to get the final out of the ninth inning. But I've said for a while now, the last 2 weeks or so probably is where I got to this point where I spoke with finality about this, where I truly think a month ago there was hope that he could get back on track. 2 weeks ago, it's like, okay, he's out of time to go on the kind of role that you need. The money's not an issue anymore. I mean, you're talking about a week's worth, 1 or 2 weeks worth of a $13 million salary. That's not a whole lot of money. But I think there was a sense of not wanting to embarrass him, but that was embarrassing for him on Tuesday night.
Well, I think he might be going to the Hall of Fame, and the last thing you want to do, you want to give him every effort, especially in a 5-0 game, to go out there and get 3 friggin' outs.
Sure, exactly.
5, whatever it was, but
exactly. But to go back to what I was trying to talk about with the trade deadline, Dominguez, check. Eflin, double check, right? Beyond that, I mean, Eloy Jimenez got off to a good start. He's batting .043 in September. Austin Slater had that 3-hit game on like September 2nd or 3rd, whatever it was, but he's batting .174 in the month of September. Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the guys that they brought up.
It was a dumpster dive more than it was a reach for great players, right?
Right. I mean, Eflin, legit. Sir Anthony Dominguez hadn't been great in Philadelphia this year, but had a track record of at least, hey, lights out in the postseason for the Phillies 2 years ago when they got to the World Series. And Austin Hayes, look, Austin Hayes hasn't been able to stay healthy. He's been on the IL multiple times for the Phillies. So
taking on Eflin was a lot about money, though, to me, and in a way that
sure
the former ownership here would not have signed off on that.
Sure,
even knowing that he's going to be your opening day starter next year because you're paying him to be that, right? Like, and we'll get to Grayson Rodriguez in a minute, whether he could be the opening day starter. But the thought that Burns is coming back and anything other than a rider contract, and we talked about Blake Snell last night, and the collusion of the owners on pitchers, which is that's next up if the Baseball Players Association want to take that on. But the Eflin thing is a little bit of an outlier for this franchise to take him on, because in the past, 18 million would have been far too rich for next year for the old guys. So that part of it is a step up, because he's the only thing they got going for them 2 weeks from now, right? Like him and Burns, at this point, they are the only hope that they can go out there and keep you in a game for 6 or 7 innings on October 2nd, 3rd, 4th, whenever it is, 2 weeks from now, and that somebody will hit the ball. Somebody, and you hope it's not Austin Slater or Menez or these guys in the lineup, right? You're hoping it's Westberg back in the lineup, but the infirmary report is more important than losing 10-0, right?
I mean, you still want, want to try to win, and it's not like the Giants have been playing great baseball, right? I mean, they were a team that didn't want to trade Blake Snell at the trade deadline because they felt like they still had a chance, right? So, but the point I was making about Mike Elias at the trade deadline, it's like you added these other guys, and let's throw Trevor Rogers into that. And I get it, Trevor Rogers has 2 more years of club control. We'll see how that plays out, but there was very much a scent of we can fix these guys, right? And not terribly different than what we're seeing with the Ravens right now with their offensive line, with their plan being we can coach these guys up, we can develop these young guys, and sometimes you can. Hey, last year, the Orioles acquired Aaron Hicks after the Yankees paid him money to stop playing for them. That's how desperate the Yankees were to get rid of Aaron Hicks. And Aaron Hicks, probably played too much down the stretch. Let's be clear about that. But he absolutely gave them a lift for an extended
in a way that
period
Eloy
of time.
Jimenez did not.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So, and look, let's be clear. I mean, it's not like they gave up real prospects for Eloy Jimenez or Austin Slater. I'm not, but it very much is you get what you pay for, right? And we've talked about that with, in my opinion, Mike Elias's biggest blind spot from a major league roster building standpoint has been his bullpen the last couple years. They fixed some guys, Yennier Cano being kind of top of the list of that. Danny Coulomb never being fixed, but being optimized, let's say.
But you don't even want to shop top shelf. You don't want Josh Hader. You don't want the developed relief pitchers and give them big money. You want to play around the edge. That's the game, right? The game is with the bullpen, finding some Batista, finding some Cano, finding some Lopez, finding these guys that are just dudes. And all of a sudden, Jacob Webb can be your closer for 90 days, or Sir Anthony Dominguez can be your closer for a couple of weeks or whatever. They don't want instant. They don't think there's a Mariano Rivera out there. And if there were, they wouldn't want to pay him anyway. I mean, that's the thing about bullpen. That's really a baseball, Garden of Eden, quite frankly, is, well, we don't want to pay the starters too much. Their arms might fall off and they're too expensive. See Corbin Burns at the end of this year. But, we don't want to give Josh Hader because, he might fall apart. And, how long is too long for a relief pitcher? How many years would you sign them? How effective can they be? Last year's closer is this year's junk pile. I mean, think of the Orioles. The Orioles lights out closer from 2 years ago. It's like awful, no good, laughed at in New York. He had some family issues, but a guy who was a closer 2 or 3 years ago is nothing. And bullpen help, there is nothing permanent about bullpen. I don't think in the modern era. You don't pay anybody and think they're Andrew Miller for 5 years or whatever, maybe the way you did 15 or 20 years ago.
No, I mean, it's very unpredictable. We've said it's like high risk stocks, right? I mean, you can get something that's going through the roof and then it's in the tank. You said 2 years. Gregory Soto was a closer going to the All-Star game a couple years ago, albeit for a bad team, but still put up those kind of numbers. Has he been that guy? I mean,
right, Kimbrel was a $13 million pitcher a year ago, according to the Orioles, right? I mean,
yeah, although that I'm not going to give them a total pass on that. Craig Kimbrel, the warning signs of I was saying this to you back in February.
Dude, you didn't care what they spent on him. You didn't think he was a closer in the big leagues. If they gave him $5 million a year and got a bargain, you would have said,
I would have liked that better at $5 million. But the point was, he wasn't going to be an elite closer, was always my argument. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not so smart to say that I foresaw what has happened in the second half to this magnitude. I wasn't suggesting he should be DFA'd in September, like being that bad. But yeah, at the same time.
But you're the one. Listen, I don't know Elias. Elias is part of the people letting you in and locking me out. So I'm not kissing his ass. I'm just simply saying I'm here to defend him a little bit on this because, you wanted bullpen help. He went and spent $13 million on the wrong guy, right? To your point, right? So if you want to beat him up about that, but he tried. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that a lot of these guys' arms fell off. A lot of innings went away. I mean, they had hundreds and hundreds of innings that just went away when Bradish and me, like literally, when you and I were down in Sarasota driving around during the rain delay, we're putting in the innings of who could do what and who would be good for what. We certainly didn't see Suarez. So you better give him some credit for that.
Well, I can criticize without suggesting that means I think he should be fired or that he's
You can't criticize
terrible at
our
his
general
job.
manager. What's wrong with you? What you like Jason Lockenfora? Well, you're not on the Christmas card. You're not an Oriole fan. You're not a
I
real
mean,
Oriole fan, Luke. Yeah, I get that so that's the side of all of this. But
uh,
for me, Elias has put the team where it is. I can't be too mad at him. And the swings and misses at the All-Star break. Yeah, you got a game 2 starter for them for 2 weeks from now. So he did get that
yeah,
out of the trade deadline.
sure. Look, everyone is partly to blame for this, and then there are all other factors that are out of their control, right? I mean, I one thing that I said to you over and over, and it's almost like this is crystallizing at this point because, I just look, stranger things have happened, but just because stranger things have happened doesn't mean that it's going to happen, right? In terms of this team getting off the mat and making any kind of a run in October, we'll see. At this point,
Getting off the
my
mat's winning game 1. I'm
my
swear to God, you know that. If they win game 1, they're off the mat.
well, getting
Literally.
off the mat, first of all, is you got to get these guys back healthy, right? I mean, you're not winning with the lineup they have right now. You're just not. Unless Gunnar
That's
Henderson's going to
fair
hit
enough.
three
I
home,
would agree with
unless
that.
Gunnar Henderson's going to do what Reggie Jackson did, right? I mean, unless you get something like that, that's just silly. But what I would say to fans at this point is, and I think most fans are in this camp at this point, adjust your expectations. I mean, it's if you're going into this expecting a deep October run, then that tells me you haven't really paid attention since June. I mean, it's
Can
just
I want to pick on ownership in Major League Baseball and just make you laugh because everybody bought their tickets the last 2 days, right?
mhm,
And it's thousands and thousands of dollars, depending on where your seats are.
mhm,
But like whatever it is, it's a cruise on your credit card right here, right now, that you may be taking next month and you might not be taking, and you'll take it at 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whenever they want to play the games.
right.
You got to get a sitter, you got to take care of the animals, you got to take care of the kids, you got to get off work. So all of that. And I thought to myself, are the tickets less? I thought this should be half price right now because I'm adjusting my expectations
Yeah.
of what I'm expecting to see 2 weeks from now. The $150 ticket should be, discounted to $69.99. I'm just thinking like, what's a game 1 worth 2 weeks from now if Rivera and these guys are going to be in the lineup and they're going to get their ass kicked? Is that really $175 playoff night for me? And I'm really wondering. It'd be like seeing Pearl Jam with half the band.
Yeah. I, the point I was just trying to make as I was talking about this, and I've used this point, even going back to the off season, despite expectations being what they were. I mean, look where Sig Mejdal and Mike Elias came from in Houston. And I said this to you a couple days ago, and probably will use this example again, assuming we're not going to see a miraculous turnaround here. But development and team building and success, it's not always linear. I mean, it's not. I think the worst thing that happened to the Orioles in a way, in terms of where they are right now, is how quickly it all came together last year. If they were having this season last year,
The
and
Royals
they
season right now, right? The Royals are having that year where they're good, but they're not great, but they're young, and that's this year. The Orioles way surpassed that last year.
right. I mean, if the season the Orioles are having right now, if that had come a year ago, people would still be frustrated because they were where they were in June, and they've had the second half that they've had. But at that point, there would be more enthusiasm because it's like, hey guys, I know it hasn't been great, but this is the first time they've been in the postseason since 16 and all of that. Problem is they won 101 games last year. Expectations went through the roof, understandably so. I'm not picking on fans and saying that. And then, as baseball is apt to do, it can humble you, and things don't always go perfect. And the example with the Astros, 2015, get in as a wild card. They won the wild card game. They took the Royals, who eventually won the World Series, to 5 games in the division series. So you want to talk about a team that looked like they had a rocket strapped to their back in terms of just their progression. And 2016, they didn't make the playoffs. They had I believe, a slightly below 500 record in the second half of the season. Now, they had some injuries and things of that nature. It happened. And then guess what? The Astros won the World Series the following year. So just because the Orioles are where they are right now, and as bleak as it feels right now, and again, just looking at it on paper, do they have enough? Are they going to have enough talent? And maybe this transitions us into talking about Grayson Rodriguez and the most recent update. But as bleak as it feels right now, that doesn't mean that all hope is lost for 2025, right? I
Dude,
mean,
if they win one game 2 weeks from now, it's one more than they won late. It'll be more exciting if they can
sure.
just win a game, force a game 3, maybe, and then they get their ass kicked the next round. I'm just
Who
saying,
knows?
like,
Who knows? Right.
they need to win game 1, and I've been saying that since June, and I'm really going to get real crystallized on that with you. You're going to get tired. You're going to want to punch me by 2 weeks from now because I'm going to talk about it a lot. They need to win game 1. I mean, forget what happened Tuesday night. Forget Craig Kimbrell. Forget that Holiday can't play. Figure out who your 9 are. Get your starter out there 2 weeks from now and win game 1. And if you win game 1, I've seen stranger things happen, to your point, because they have big league players in their lineup. I would agree with you as assembled. If Westberg's not back, if Rodriguez, and this is where I'm going to shut up and give you a chance to give me the infirmary report, because I know Elias was trying to give that to you, and it really changes day to day, like even on Mountcastle and some of these guys, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Jordan Westberg took batting practice. Looks like he's on track to be back before the end of the regular season. I mean, the one tricky part here, which isn't a complete deterrent, but it's something worth acknowledging, is Norfolk's season is over on Sunday. So in terms of trying to get these guys live at bats, now they can do sim games and things of that nature. So it's not like it's impossible, but that's one factor. But, Westberg's on track. I saw Arias hit and run the bases. His ankle seems to be doing way better. He's on track. Uh, Ryan Mountcastle, like I said, 10 days ago, if you had asked me, some of the updates sounded like, oh, I don't know if he's coming back, but he's in Sarasota hitting, and Elias was down there on the off day and said he looks good. And said he even has a really good chance to, he might be playing at Norfolk maybe this weekend. I mean, that's what it's looking like. So,
By the way, if you wanted Norfolk to play longer, you could have left Mayo and Holiday down
right,
there.
right. Yeah, I
They
mean,
would have been a better team.
they've kind of, they've got Samuel Basayo, their stud catching prospect there. A couple other guys have been promoted, but yeah, I mean, it's a different team than how it looked in April. That's for sure. The Orioles aren't the only ones in that regard, but Danny Coulombe's going to make at least one more rehab appearance. I mean, Coulombe, I think there's a little more of a challenge there because he hasn't pitched since June. He had elbow surgery with the bone chips. From what I understand, Velo was down a little bit, and his first rehab stint was better. In subsequent ones, so they're still trying to give him some time in terms of, one, how he feels, and two, how effective he looks. So he's going to have at least one more rehab appearance. The one, and I've been posing this question to you probably the last couple times it came up, but Elias acknowledged, and I saw it with my own eyes. I mean, Grayson Rodriguez has not had a setback or anything like that. I saw with my own eyes. He warmed up in the outfield as I arrived at the ballpark on Tuesday afternoon, and then he threw a bullpen session. I saw him. He wore his number 30 jersey. It was Grayson Rodriguez. Even had my binoculars just to be certain. So there's no. I don't think they're being coy or trying to deceive or anything like that with Rodriguez. As I said to you from the moment that they announced it was a lat strain, those are tricky. I mean, that cost him 3 months 2 years ago when he was on the verge of being called up to the majors in June of 2022. So Elias acknowledged he's doing really well. He's making progress. He's on the verge of throwing live batting practice, facing actual hitters, in a, not a game setting, but a competitive setting, a competitive environment. But, he acknowledged the calendar and time's not on our side. And then follow-up question asked, as I've posed the possibility of Rodriguez potentially working out of the bullpen. He did not dismiss that possibility, but he also acknowledged, hey, first and foremost, we need to make sure we take care of this guy physically because he's that important to us. We can't rush back a diminished Grayson Rodriguez and think that, one, that's going to give us our best chance to win in October, and two, that's going to position us well for the future. And he's right about that. So my gut, based on the fact that he's acknowledging that, says, it's quite possible we don't see Grayson Rodriguez.
It was a warning
if
shot,
we do,
right? Literally, right? Little bit.
I mean, he said at the time, he said, and look, they never announced a timetable because
it's a lat strain.
Especially with pitcher injuries. I mean, you just don't know, right? I mean, it's one thing. I mean, even like Jordan Westberg, like a bone, like, bones typically heal, right? And typically you have doctors and medical personnel and athletic trainers, they have data to go off of to kind of give you a good target as far as what recovery will be. And some guys recover really fast and some guys are a little bit slower. But Elias said at the time, and keep in mind, this was the first week of August when they were in Toronto when Rodriguez was scratched. He said at the time that they thought it was a 6 to 8 weeks for him to be back. Well, Tuesday marked exactly 6 weeks. So he's not at the front of the curve, but it's not like he's a month behind it either. So I think it's really one of those where I'm guessing if we see Grayson Rodriguez pitch in October, and again, this is a guess. This is not me hearing this from someone in the organization, but just going off of what Mike Elias said and just kind of reading the tea leaves and just recognizing that this guy still hasn't pitched in a game. He hasn't been stretched out like anything like that. But I think if we see Grayson Rodriguez, I think it'll be in some kind of a hybrid relief capacity. And at this point, considering the wild card series is now less than 2 weeks away from getting started, and the Orioles are 4 games behind the Yankees with 11 games to play, you do the math there. I mean, even if they're not within 3 games when they go to the Bronx, even a sweep is still going to leave them behind the Yankees. So I'm looking at this from a wild card standpoint. I'm guessing they're going to have to make some hay in October and actually advance, and then Grayson Rodriguez becomes an option in some capacity. That's my gut. We'll see. Again, I've used the Kevin Gausman comparison, but keep in mind, Nestor, Kevin Gausman in 2014, when the Orioles shifted him to the pen for that swing role that he did really well in, keep in mind, he's someone who had pitched in the bullpen before. Grayson Rodriguez has 1 career appearance in relief. It was in the Gulf Coast League back in 2018. So I'm not saying that a relief role for him would be he comes in inheriting 2 runners with 2 outs in the 8th inning. I'm sure it would be much more of a, hey, you're replacing Albert Suarez with an out, 1 out in the 4th inning, and you're going to go 2 innings for us. Probably something like that, which is what Gausman did 10 years ago. But is that going to be a realistic option in the wild card series? He's still got a ways to go here. So that's where maybe division series, I don't know. But I think at this point, it's much more of a maybe rather than I don't even know if you're writing it in pencil, let alone talking about pen. I mean, I think it's much more, he's over in the margin as you're filling out the roster as, hey, maybe at some point in October, he can help us. But again, he's still, until he's facing live hitting, until we hear that he's throwing a sim game and logging a couple innings of a sim game or something like that, it's really tough to talk about him being a part of their October plans, let alone any visions of him being a game 2 starter. I mean, I think that ship has sailed, at least for the wild card round.
Luke Jones is here. He will be there. They're going to split him in half. Half of him is going to be at the ballpark on Thursday. Half of him will be in Owings Mills. He is back and forth, and the Ravens headed down to Dallas this weekend. Full coverage all week long. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour on Friday at Fadley's at Lexington Market before the Orioles game. Got some great guests. We'll be at Costas next Friday, the 27th, and previewing what we hope to be, the Buffalo Bills and some playoff baseball here 2 weeks from now. Luke can be found at Baltimore. Luke, anything else you want to give just before I give the warning shot? We go back talking some football here because that's bringing us a lot of joy this week,
Just got to win. I mean, they got to. I agree with your overall point about game 1. Let me be very clear about that. But it's not good vibes right now. It's just not. And I don't mean that in a way that like there's dissension. There's just so much frustration. I mean, these guys, Tuesday night, it felt like they were beaten down. Like it felt like
a long season.
I'm not saying that, and let me be clear, I'm not questioning like that they're jaking it. They just the vibe felt a little more defeated, right? And you don't want that. I mean, this team's they're going to make the playoffs. Mathematically speaking, it would have to be such a crazy collapse, and also the teams behind them playing so superb, playing so well over the last 10 days here for that to happen. But it's just Mike Elias, he gave his best, with the state of the Orioles. He acknowledged the mojo having gone away, but he expressed confidence in that they're going to break out of it and all that. And then they lose 10-0. I mean, that's just
Well, they got to go to Yankee Stadium. They got to win some games. Give me the wild card breakdown in your mind for a scenario where they're not catching the Yankees. They're 4 back with 10 to
right.
play, right? Like they're not catching they're not going to win the division. They're not going to be a 1 seed. Hey, how about that bye? How you feel about that? Well, we don't have to worry about that anymore. You're going to
Yeah.
get your wish. They're going to get to play. What would that look like Tuesday, Wednesday, and maybe Thursday the following week?
Well, I mean, as it stands now, they'd be hosting the Kansas City Royals, right? I mean, the top wild card gets home field in the wild card round. The third division winner gets home field in the wild card round.
And
It's a
that's
best
Houston
of
at this
three.
point, right? Right. That's
All
Houston.
three. All, yeah, I think so. It should be right.
Yeah.
I didn't have the standings in front of me, but yeah, the Yankees, and then it would be
And then if it ended today, it'd be Yankees 1, Cleveland.
yes, correct. But as it stands with the Orioles, I mean, they've got to hold on. You want home field, right? I mean, you don't want to go best of three, all three on the road, which is what the wild card round is. But they've got to hold off the Royals. Now, the good news is the Royals have been scuffling. Had a losing streak themselves, but I mean, you just you gotta win some games. You gotta have something to feel good about, right? I mean, other than all they have to feel good about right now is how the first 2.5 months, 3 months of the season went, and the fact that the math works in their favor in terms of how many games are left. I mean, that's literally all there is to feel good right now. And to your point, the starting pitching, Suarez on Tuesday night notwithstanding, the starting pitching has been, it's been a plus in the month of September. It really has been. But they just, win a couple games here. Feel better about yourselves. Win a 13-1 game, and Adley Rutschman hits 2 bombs, and Colton Cowser hits a bomb, and gets on base 3 times, and you need something like that. And I'm not saying that that's the end all be all, but boy, again, the vibes just. And I'm not a big vibe guy, right? I mean, you know me, I like to try to quantify as much as I can in terms of my opinions on something, but it just it felt kind of defeated Tuesday night, and that was disheartening. Starting the final homestand of the year and coming off an off day. I mean, that wasn't great. And Blake Snell's terrific. Like I said, I'm not shocked that they struggled to swing the bats against him specifically, but I mean, they've made everyone look like Blake Snell of late. That's been the problem, really.
Yeah, we got Dean Kramer, going for him. And then Thursday afternoon, it's going to be Eflin. So, if you're heading down to the ballpark, wave to Luke. He'll be there. We're going to be monitoring football all week and talking about the problems with the 0-2 football team. This was supposed to be fun. I was looking forward to September, even back in like May and June and July. The hell happened around here? It's a good thing I got crab cakes and some shrimp salad and some fried oysters waiting for me over at Faithley's. I've been celebrating with 26 oysters in 26 days. I'm about halfway through. I was at Conrad's Crabs up Perry Hall, the new location across the street, which Luke, you'll remember it as the location where Joe Flacco made the guarantee. So I did have a couple of 6 raw oysters in the bar there, and think about how it used to be back when I was a real media member. It is a long week around here. It's going to be a long fall around here if things don't go better. But I will continue to say, just win game 1. He's Luke. I'm Nestor. We're WNST AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Back for more on Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.